All right, mates, welcome back to the channel. JL Scott Fishing and Eats. Everybody's doing well. This morning, we are going to talk a little bit about the Greenbrier River, and the reason why we're talking about that is Hobie has opened up the Greenbrier River boundaries for its July 29th two-day Hobie event, sponsored by our friends at Torquedo. And it's really, really interesting because if you think about it now, it's really the New River Greenbrier event. I mean, it really is. If you understand how much really good smallmouth water has just been opened up for Hobie going into this event, remember your off limits period begins Saturday, July 8th, if you plan on fishing Hobie, okay, the Hobie event. That is your off limits period until pre-fishing begins, which is usually a week before, probably the 21st or something like that. So now you have the Greenbrier opened up. Now, to my knowledge, none of the other, the Greenbrier is a river, is a tributary, okay? What most people don't understand is that the Greenbrier River actually puts about 25 to 30% of the actual water flow of the New River into that river system. So the Greenbrier, is a big deal. It's 173 miles long, okay? This river is actually, trying to remember, I think it is still the largest undammed river in the eastern United States. Definitely in our region, it's the largest undammed river for sure. But that's kind of an old, so I'm not really sure if anything else has been done to change that. But it's definitely one of, if it's not the longest undammed now still remaining in the United States. That kind of goes back a long, long time for me. But it's very interesting because this puts a lot of scenarios into play, mates, for this event. I'd not be surprised if, the top anglers are fishing Greenbrier. I just wouldn't, especially local. You got to go look on there, and you got a lot of local hammers from West Virginia, a lot of local people from Southwest Virginia fishing the event. So they're going to be probably more in the know about more of the Greenbrier areas and sections than probably some of these national anglers. Though there are some national anglers, obviously from like Jody Queen from West Virginia, who knows the New River and knows West Virginia waters. I mean, obviously really, really well. So that will be an interesting dynamic to play into this. Plus, you've got a lot of creeks. There are a lot of creeks that hold smallmouth along the New River. None of those are out of bounds, evidently, because there haven't been boundary markers marked. So I don't know how far. Most of those creeks are obviously a foot to a foot and a half, and sometimes 6 inches or whatever. How far you can get back till you hit your first obstacle, or and things like that. But you are allowed a portage, and you are allowed to tether for this event, as I covered in the previous videos I've done on the New River for this event. But I just wanted to add this because it's such a significant aspect of this event to go over some of the information for the Greenbrier. So Greenbrier is going to run, obviously down here at Bellepoint, you've got where it empties into the New River, okay? And the boundary runs all the way to Caldwell. So it's beyond Alderson, which is a popular area for kayaking, kayak fishing. There's some campgrounds within a mile or two. Very, very popular. There's river float companies, paddle companies, tube companies, all that stretch. If you know anything about that part, that's a big vacation area as well during the summertime for people to come in. But Caldwell is up here. So that's how far, mates. That is a significant distance to the New River, open water that you are allowed to fish for this event. And so let's get into what you're really looking at from Caldwell, okay, all the way down to Bellepoint and the New River. Now, Today, as of this morning, let's take a look at this really quick, see if it's updated again. The Alderson gauge, you can find these gauge mates on NOAA, N-O-A-A. Just Google NOAA, and we're like, if you want to, whatever river you want to fish for the most part, because it's a national weather, just Google like NOAA, N-O-A-A, Alderson, okay? Or NOAA, Greenbrier River, NOAA, New River, and it'll show you your options of gauges that it uses for its reporting for the hydrograph, for the National Weather Service and all of that stuff. So the gauge currently is at 2.5 feet at the Alderson gauge. That would be here, which is more or less halfway. It could be a little less than halfway from Caldwell to the New River. So it's gauging this morning the the Greenbrier River at 2.5 feet. So keep that in mind. 2 more weeks left, I guess, or so, until the event. But that's an easy gauge you can keep checking over the next coming days during the off limits period. For sure that you want to take a look at. So we're going to tighten this up a little bit. Start with a couple stretches. Caldwell. I never pronounce that right. I call it Ron Cerverte. I don't know really what that's just the way it sounds to me. It's always sounded to me, but and so you've got that's really your first float, okay, from Caldwell to Island Park, okay, and it's primarily class 1. Don't think maybe during high water events, in the spring, or there may be a class 2, but it's basically class 1 down the bend. Let's see if we can get a little bit more into this. Down the bend, and then you basically drop down to Island Park, which is right here. Okay, and so that float is about 6 miles, so 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Again, pick your poison on how long you're going to pick apart areas, but that's basically a 2.5 hour to 3 hour float. Okay. Remember, these events run from 6:30 in the morning till 2, I think. So there's plenty of options to hit floats out, especially if you've got partners. And I would highly recommend, if you're fishing on the New River, that you fish with somebody, that you not go out there and fish alone, for sure. So then you have Island Park, okay, west of town, and you're going to go to Fort Spring, which is all the way over here. Okay, so that puts into play all this water here. And you've got some drops on this one, okay? Class 1, obviously, riffles. It's an 8.5 mile float from Island Park to Fort Spring. Now, when I'm telling you these floats, mates, this is for your knowledge, so you know that there are entry and exit points. You can combine any of these up, change any of these up when you watch this video, however you want to do it, okay, for sure. So you've got Island Park here, and then you've got Fort Spring here, all right? And so you can, that is, like I said, a 8.5 mile, okay? So from Caldwell to Island Park is 6. From Island Park to Fort Spring is 8.5, okay? And then after that, you're going to get Fort Spring to Alderson or to the campground. You can go to the campground, which is a lot further. We'll get into that in a second. Trying to think. Fort Spring to Alderson, I think, is 6 miles. So that's going to be the next one. All right. And so you've got, let me wipe. Clear screen. There we go. And back. All right. So you've got Fort Spring. And look at that great, just a great float. I mean, you got some bends here in the river. Obviously, you've got some riffles. You've got some, shallow water. But again, class one, and again, maybe in springtime, or if you've got heavy rains going in, you may get a class two. But basically, class ones. So now you've got Fort Spring, east of Fraser. Okay, that we're going to look at. And to Alderson is 6 miles. So you got Alderson down here. Okay, at the bottom. Trying to get my mug out of the way. So from Fort Spring through Fraser, down halfway, down around into Alderson, the town of Alderson. Okay, class ones, class twos across the board. You could probably see here on the screen what we're looking at, with a lot of rock, a lot of ripple, a lot of drops. Okay, so that one's probably from the jump, your harder stretch. Okay, in terms of rapids and ripples okay. Now you can, again, combining these, Fort Spring to Alderson is 6 miles. Fort Spring to the River Run campground. So if you shuttle up to Fort Spring, okay, and run back down to the campground, okay, that is a 15-mile float or so, or get your exit. I'm sure I don't know if the campground has been listed as a inbounds launch point. I think it should be, just because you have limited launches on places like this. But I'm not sure. You need to either suggest that, recommend that, to folks at Hobie and see if it's listed. If it's not, you can easily exit at the next ramp or the ramp before and get your shuttle service, especially if you're staying. A lot of the campgrounds in this part of the country offer shuttle services, or there's companies that cater to those campgrounds for shuttle services. Okay, so those are things you want to take advantage of. So Alderson to the River Run campground is about 2 to 3 miles, I think. So you've got Alderson, and just kind of watch how it just goes through Big Wheel and then bends and boom, just comes straight down. That's actually kind of a cool float, to be honest. And then you're, again, class one, class two, class three, okay, at times. Okay, that stretch, Alderson to the campground, Alderson to Penn Springs, that's going to have some, it's not unusual for it to have class three. Okay, so a little bit more advanced. Again, just be careful, be smart about it. Do your research on your float. There's plenty of paddling.com. There's plenty of places you can go where people talk about their experiences, probably on YouTube, to actually show you their floats. On YouTube, you can kind of gauge, okay, how to approach these rock dams and, things like that, these ripples, these rock lines, these ledges, these rapids, class two and class three, how you want to approach them. Now, Alderson is a big area, like a popular, I should say, not big. It's a popular area for these floats heading towards the New River. Okay, and so you've got Alderson to the campground was 2 miles. Alderson to Penn Springs is 8 miles, eight and a half miles. Alderson to Talcott Bridge, 13 plus miles. So you can kind of do that right there, the math there. So Penn Springs to Talcott's got to be about 4 to 4.5, because Alderson to Penn Springs is 8.5, and Alderson to Talcott Bridge is 13. Okay, so you can kind of discern that in these float distances. Okay, here's Penn Springs. Okay, see, that was a nice little long float. That's a pretty scenic. 2 of these floats are actually really, really scenic. I mean, they're beautiful floats. And they're not nearly as like, I don't want to use the word dangerous, but they're not nearly as challenging as the New River is. So if you're coming to the region, you're not familiar with the New River at all, and New River may be intimidating. These floats are great floats. Great floats. Easy floats in terms of challenging. There are a few class 3s that you got to pay attention to, depending on what's happening with the river. But like I said, the Alderson gauge is at 2.5 right now. Okay, that's the low end. All right, that is the low end for the Greenbrier. Most of those tubing companies, most of those kayak companies probably aren't scheduling floats below that level. They want like 2.5 to 4. That's kind of like 2.5 to 3.5, 4. That's kind of a sweet spot, okay? So you're obviously still going to be able to float, okay, without necessarily having to be out of your kayak a lot at 2.5 feet. You go lower than that in a lot of these sections, you're going to run into a little bit of trouble. Penn Springs, obviously. Then the Talcott Bridge, like we said before. It's got some flat areas below Talcott. Pretty calm, pretty easy paddling, to be honest. Once you get through that stretch, if you're incorporating Talcott into a long run, on the end of that long run, it is a little easier. Okay, so a lot of that stuff's going to be up top, and then you're getting down below Talcott. You've got some flat pools, class 1 from Pence to Talcott. Okay, so it ends the day a lot easier than ending the day in a really challenging stretch for you, if that makes sense. And then you've got Talcott, just pretty much the last really. You got the campgrounds, okay, down here below, and I'm probably 90% sure that those aren't going to be available for anglers to launch from or whatever. But if you can swing that, research them, and you can do your floats, or just reach out to me and I can kind of give you a gauge on how far something might be. And then you got Willow Bend, Willow Wood Bridge. And this is where you're making that stretch to Bellepoint, okay, and the New River right here. So those are primarily, 5. You can split them up again if the campgrounds, if you're staying at campgrounds. But you predominantly have about 5 or 6 floats that are all, 8 miles or less. Okay, and again, an 8-mile float is about 3.5 to 4 hours. So that fits in if you're going to do a float for the Hobie event. Okay, and so that's what you want. And the Greenbrier is a phenomenal smallmouth fishery. There are citations taken out of Greenbrier on a regular basis, just like the New River. Okay, so weigh that with, I think it's the New River Greenbrier River event myself, just because of the reputation that Greenbrier has. Okay, with producing really quality smallmouth, and it's a little easier, for being able to the current flow, being able to pick it apart, being able to gate, as opposed to that New River can get kind of again, this is a non-trolling motor event as well. So that makes it even better, I think. Greenbrier even better set up for those anglers that are aware, and do a little bit of research and diagnose it and break it on down, talk to other people and kind of gauge so with that event. Now, the other aspect of this event that kind of, I will say, is concerning to me, is the fact that we have another event on the New River scheduled the same day. And to me, it just doesn't make any sense. Okay. And it's one of the aspects that we have to deal with in the fishing community, where everybody get on the same page. And so some people will say it shouldn't bother you, Jay. It just does. Because it's this is a national event. We want all the national events. I don't care who it is. I don't play the tribal game. I don't care whether it's Bassmaster or whether it's Hobie, whether it's kayak bass fishing, whoever it is. If your region, your area is getting a national event, that's great especially now, with everybody's facing in the economy, from small businesses to diners to gas stations to, you're getting 150, 200 anglers or whatever it is coming into a region for these events, sometimes more than once, right? You want that for your community. You don't want to schedule events the same day and not have it be like a double dip opportunity. Like, it's one thing if, like, Queen City does this really, really well with Hobie. Okay, they'll schedule their events in tandem with Hobie down in South Carolina. Okay, Santee, Hartwell, places like that. Okay, and their anglers will double dip, which is, if you're not familiar with that, double dip means you enter both events and you just fish where you fish, and you can upload your fish to both events. It's pretty simple. But I know a lot of people look at me and are like, Jay, we know what that means. A lot of people don't. Like, a lot of people that watch this channel, that follow me on Facebook, are brand new. They are new. They are new. They have just bought their first kayak, okay, in the last year, post-pandemic, the last year and a half, 2 years. And they have never fished a kayak fishing event. And so that's usually who I'm speaking to in my videos. I'm not speaking to the seasoned angler who fishes every Hobie event, every bass event, or every KBF event. Those guys, they know. Okay, they're not following this channel. They're not. That's not who the content really is for. It's for growing the sport and getting everybody onto new water in the region, bring people to our region, help our economic development in our region. This is why a lot of people send me information on events like, Jay, you're gonna cover the Bassmaster event on lacrosse. Why would I cover lacrosse? Okay, like, I don't know lacrosse. I've never fished on the Mississippi River. Okay, so why am I going to cover that? Right? It's not in my region. It's not somewhere I fished. It's not something that I have really like on my radar, or people in my community, the smallmouth army, okay, have on their radar. We fish within our region, and so that's what I try to keep it within our region. Okay, so when a national event comes here like KBF Potomac, okay, and a national event like Hobie came last year, Susquehanna, Bass is coming to Susquehanna, I will cover that, right? But I'm not going to cover. There are people who are more dialed in and know these things a lot better than me that can cover the national trails, especially for those events. It's down south, okay, and something like lacrosse or the Mississippi, or Rayburn for Lake Fork, Sam Rayburn, all that kind of stuff. So again, big community, big pieces of the pie. I just kind of dial my stuff down to my region and help people fishing get on fish within my region and enlist in events in my registered, for instance. This one kind of bothers me because it's not even the same water. So it's like guys can't double dip. Like, I want to fish down. So they schedule an event on the same day as the New River Hobie, but then they open up all the water down from the North Carolina state line all the way up to Radford and Blacksburg, and then all the way up to West Virginia. And sure, you could probably fish from Pembroke, Eggleston to the West Virginia line in both events, but you've got all this water that everybody knows is prime smallmouth water. There's a lot of prime smallmouth water that is not included in the Hobie event in Virginia. We know that, but that's just the way things are. Radford's not hosting the event, okay? Blacksburg's not hosting the event. Christiansburg's not hosting the event, mates, okay? Beckley, West Virginia is hosting the event. So if you, like me, want to get events like Hobie into Virginia proper, at the prime smally areas that all these local events fish, we got to do a better job of getting Radford on board. Blacksburg's a booming like city now. It has grown crazy since since I went to Blacksburg when my sister was in college in the 80s. Okay? Like, it's booming compared to the way it was, okay, before Michael Vick showed up, right? Like, pick up the phone, get that to where then you can get your sections. But this notion of somehow like trying not to get people to fish a national trail event, I don't get that. It's not my thing. I don't get it. It's to me, it's more about someone with, issues. So I'm going to say it's like issues. Like, I want to be the big fish in the small pond, and when you could be supporting a national trail with your whole trail. I mean, that group has 500-600 anglers in their Facebook group. I mean, so how many people are they pulling into the Hobie event? That's what they should be doing, right? Giving their anglers the opportunity to fish a national event that may never come back. I think registrations are at 36. That is a paltry number for the New River. Okay? It's at 36 right now. All right? And so this thing should be well over 100 to 150 anglers. This is the New River. This is Greenbrier, right? These are, and so someone like me, I'm like, man, no one's going to listen to me. they're gonna think I'm punking them, man, because it's like I'm talking about the James River. I'm talking about these rivers, and if we can't get 100 anglers to fish the new river for a Hobie event, is bass gonna come? This could be your one shot, mates. This could be your one shot deal. And I know there are people out there who don't want these national events to come to their backyard. Okay, I get that. I think they're the minority. Okay, they really are. But your economies in your towns and along the way, and the floats and the campgrounds and the river companies and all that stuff, and the tackle shops, and and all the fast food, all that kind of stuff benefits from these events. Okay, they do. Why do you think they keep having the boater events back along the eastern seaboard? Okay, why do they keep having them back on the Potomac, back, okay, on the river systems, on the lakes, the New York lakes? Why do they keep having them back? Because it's an economic interest into having major boater tours. You got to start somewhere, okay? And you can't start with not supporting and I don't care which national one it is, and I don't care if people don't like bass or don't like Hobie or don't like KBF, whatever. Get over it. Like, this is your region. This is your town. This is your economy. And it's not just a single myopic event, mates. This is like going forward, growing the sport to where there are major events in your region. You can't just have this small trail mentality of, I don't want my anglers to fish an event or whatever. They're not your anglers. Okay? Like, there's the problem that people have. Anglers are anglers. Give them the opportunity to put their stick to work. Give them an opportunity to test their ability against some of the top anglers in the country and support them in doing that, right? That's what we're going to be about in 2024. What we are going to be about in 2024 is a trail series that actually supports, on a regional level, not national, okay, but actually supports the angler's ambition and and the angler who wants to build a brand with sponsors, who wants to be supported financially and elevated to where they can go to these tournaments, where they could go next year to New River Hobie, okay, without having to pay their entry fee, without having to worry about gas, without having to worry about a place to stay, because they're fully sponsored up. Not only are they sponsored by sponsors of the trail series, but they're sponsored by their own individual sponsors, or they're sponsored by people like me, okay, in businesses that I have, in businesses that I know, and relationships with, and all of that. That's what we're going to be about in 2024. And I know it's going to ruffle a lot of people because it's going to shake it up. It's going to shake some things up. Because what's coming down the pipe for the future, the kayak fishing community needs to change. It's not working, okay? Look at registrations this year have dipped. Look at kayak sales. They are plummeting, okay? Post-pandemic highs, okay? The market's going to react to that. The market's going to retreat back, okay? And when that happens, in that inflection point, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to get in. And it's an opportunity to provide people more water to fish, and an opportunity to get behind people and help grow people, okay? Growing anglers into the national level. Growing anglers to fulfilling their aspirations. That's what these trails should be about, okay? These trails that have 12 anglers, 9 anglers, 4 anglers registered up for events, those are great little trails, but they're clubs. They're like little clubs like we have in boating events and boater clubs all along the Potomac and the James River and the Upper Bay, that where 12 guys show up, put their money into the pot and fish. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I love it, okay? Because sometimes you don't want to be dealing with you just want to go out and fish with some guys you don't want to go out. It's competitive, but it's more like, it's more like bragging rights, right? And some cash, right? But it's not like a national event where there's some stress involved, there's some planning involved, there's all that stuff, travel involved, time off from work, all that stuff, right? And so that's where we want to change the game here is that next tier, there's a gap between really quality trail. I would say probably the best regional trail in the country is probably Queen City, who does it right. Okay? And so we need more of those in our regions, okay? We need to, in the Northeast, okay, and in the Mid-Atlantic, and incorporating Ohio and places like that. We need more of those type that reach that level of that provide that opportunity for anglers to cut their teeth and then go on and double dip or go on to national events. All right, mates. Hope everybody enjoyed this Greenbrier River video. Hit me up if you have any messages. Hit me up, JL Scott Fishing on Facebook.